Welcome to the Vocal Lab podcast with your hosts Shelby Rollins and Jason Catrone, bringing you the best from the music industry. Get ready for first-class conversations packed with exclusive techniques and transformative insights, all designed to help you reach your top note.
Welcome back to the Vocal Lab podcast. I'm Shelby Rollins.
I'm Jason Catrone.
And today we have a super, super special guest that I've been excited about for months.
Yeah, me too. Like months, because we have wanted her on this podcast since we started the concept of doing one together, because you're friendly in another avenue of life that you can talk about in a second. But just so excited to have met you today. Do the intros. I'll shut up.
We have Taylor Lindsey here from Sony Records.
Woo!
Now, Taylor is, I like to use the word, I used this for somebody else on our podcast a month or so ago. She's a bouse. She's like a real bouse.
I don't know about that.
No. Don't
a big
undersell
fish.
yourself. She is a big fish.
A big deal.
And Taylor is the senior vice president at Sony Records Nashville, and specifically in A&R is kind of like your niche, right?
Yes,
like your main
that is correct.
area.
Yeah.
She's one of those people you want to know.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
And that's
Or you want to
part
know
of what
the
we're going to
people
talk
that
about.
are in the department around me, maybe.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that prop me up, make me look really good.
I don't know. I think they'd all pee their pants if something were to ever happen to you. So we want to talk about you today and just ask you lots of questions about your career. And I mean, the whole point of a lot of these types of interviews are to help people understand how they can get to the point that, you have gotten to in your career. If being an executive in the industry is the goal, or as an artist to listen to somebody who is the one who pulls the strings and who can make the things happen for artists. Like how does an artist position themselves as well to be in your good graces? So obviously it's talent and skill is like number one. But I
think it's kind of like too, your position to me has always been, you're like the wizard behind on the Wizard of Oz.
Totally.
Everyone's kind of wondering, who is this person? What do they really do? And how do I get to meet them? Because I know they make dreams come true.
Yeah.
That's how I've always envisioned your position. So it is a really cool, job that you have.
It
I know
really
you know
is.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like any job, when you do something long enough, it's really easy to bitch about it.
Yeah.
But, when you take a step back and you have the perspective of, I get to do this every day. I get to work with artists every single day. I get to listen to music every single day. Like, that's my job. It's pretty,
It's cool.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So how did we get to this point?
How did we get here? Well, I never intended to be here.
Wow.
Never intended to be in music at all.
I read somewhere that you thought you might take like a biochemistry class or something like that and just like
pre-med.
skate through college.
I was too.
Because you don't skate through college at pre-med. You were pre-med?
Yeah. What did you want to be?
A pediatrician.
I wanted to be a dermatologist because
Oh, I never wanted to do any of that.
oh gosh, yeah, they don't work weekends. They're not on call.
Beautiful
They make
skin
crazy money. You
all
have
the
great
time.
skin.
And now that I can understand you being a
Right?
dermatologist. I see that.
Yeah, I
I
see
really
it too,
wanted
actually.
I had actually never been to one
Really?
either, but I'm like, this is what I want to be. Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
Now my cousin's a dermatologist in South Florida. He's got a private jet. He's got everything. I'm like, did I really choose the right thing? I don't know.
But you
You
can
know,
call him, get the skincare. And
You
see
can.
him.
True.
You can.
That's true.
I never wanted to do anything medical, and it wasn't because I was like queasy about blood. It was because I didn't want to work that hard and go to school that long.
No, that's true.
Full
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
But anyway, you wanted to be
Yeah.
you were pre-med.
I was pre-med. So my sister is 10 years older than I am. And just last week, she was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in New
Incredible.
York, which is insane.
Were you
It's
there
like
for
the
that?
Pinnacle. Yeah, the whole
Can
family
we
went.
give the lovely people her name?
Yes, her name is Hillary Lindsey.
One of the biggest songwriters
Yes.
in country music.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And has been for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her first big hit was Jesus Take the Wheel.
Her first number
Was that-
one was Blessed by Martina McBride.
Oh.
okay.
Her first multi-week kind of big number one was Jesus Take the Wheel. That was the first song that won all of the awards. That
Crazy.
was Song of the
Wow.
Year and Grammy nominated and all the things. But no, she had been doing it actually quite some time before Carrie Underwood.
So you're like a little
Jesus Take the
dynamic
Wheel.
duo in town, even though
I
you are
guess so.
individual in your own thing. But
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Well, so I
Really
actually
cool.
started out working with her. So I was in pre-med, and I was pre-med in college and had no inclination of wanting to be in the music business. But I needed some elective classes. And because she's older than I am, she was having number ones, and we were going to events and number one parties and those types of things when I was still like in middle school and high school.
Oh my gosh.
Same. That was me and Shelby too. That's why we're here. Let's just be honest.
Nepotism at its finest. Anyway, so I ran into someone on campus at the University of Georgia who was just starting the music business program. His name was Bruce Birch. It was a certificate program at the time, not even a minor, definitely not a major.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, come take these classes. You'll fit right in. And yeah, I signed up for a couple, like actually thinking that I'd study, the pre-med courses in the back of the class, like, because I just needed something to fill the void of needing electives. And then I got the bug. So, but never on like the musical side, never on the artist side, never like on the creative side. It was always business oriented.
Yeah.
So I took a semester off, actually moved up here and just started pitching songs for Hill. And that was, I don't even know what year that was, actually. It's been that long.
Now, I love the jump from sitting in a classroom taking a single elective to I moved to Nashville to pitch songs for my sister who wrote number one hits.
I know.
No, it was
Close
it
the
was
gap
wild.
for us, Taylor. How did that
There's
happen?
really not much of one. That's the crazy thing. Like, there really isn't much of a gap because I just knew all of the people, all the players already because I'd been around it so much. And she just went independent. She had 15 plus cuts and decided to leave the publishing company she was at and go be independent for a minute. And only one of the songs out of all those cuts made the record.
Wow.
Which just also tells you, how crazy the industry is. And that part's still true. Artists, can fall in love with a song, put a song on hold, cut a song, and then it might not ever see the light of day.
Sure.
And so as a songwriter, you have to hedge your bets. But you also have to make sure that the people around you, are going to pitch your songs and get you good co-writes and all of that stuff to make sure that you can generate income.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask, did that confirm for her that decision to go independent?
It scared her, actually. But then 6 months later, she met Carrie Underwood and wrote Jesus, Take the Wheel. A couple years after that, that's when all of that stuff started.
Which is actually the fun part of music business, as opposed to medicine, maybe. Yeah. Not that we've ever worked in that, but I'm just guessing. The dreams happen, those moments where the stars, quote unquote, do align and the world changes forever for those people involved. And that's really cool. And that was your story as well. Even like, if I'm correct, song plugging has changed so much since you were doing that.
It totally
Is it even still a thing that much?
It is still a thing, but now the publishing community is really just focused on co-writes because every artist is a writer now. Like when I first started, you would get outside cuts. You could just pitch songs that an artist wasn't involved in, and you'd get cuts. And now outside cuts are few and far between.
Right.
And it's really all based on the artists that you can get the writers in the room with.
Well, and like 20, 30 years ago, too, so many artists were singing other people's songs. They weren't even taking a part of writing.
Yeah. It was covers after covers. It's like multiple people would cut one song across different genres. And it worked. But now it's just a totally different beast. Different
other sync is sort of the exception in a way to that, right? Because it's not really about the artist. It's often, sometimes it is. If in country, I feel like it can be about the artist because, if you've got sync country, that's typically for those shows like Yellowstone and stuff like that, where you actually have more of the artist. But otherwise, it's like beats, and stuff that's just like filling the space. Like there's songs that come out on certain TV shows are a little bit of an exception, but otherwise, sync it's just sort of like make the song and get on TV, get in a commercial or whatever. But otherwise, it's all driven by the artist. It seems. Yeah.
And really, and this is maybe a discussion for another time, but what's going to change the game for sync is AI, because they'll be able to generate mood music.
Oh, you're right.
To the scene that they need at a significantly cheaper cost because you won't have the artist name attached to it. Yeah. So the fees will be nothing. So it's going to be wild to see kind of how that plays out.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Be a huge deal. Well, how did you transition into... Or what was after plugging?
Yeah.
Take us there.
So I was at BMG for a minute working with Hillary. She was there. And so I was able to work with her. And I had 13 other artists, writers and artists at the time. And then...
And what was your title at BMG?
I was senior director there of publishing. And then...
you just like having these seniors attached to your name.
Yeah. Were you ever a junior?
I know, right?
I am a junior. No, I'm just so then on like a Thursday, Jim Catino, who was the vice president of A&R at Sony Records, called me and said, have a beer with me tomorrow, which was not unusual because I was pitching songs to him already. We had a great relationship. I loved Jim. And we met for a beer in Midtown, and he said, look, I have an A&R position open. It's yours if you want it. And I said, I don't think I want it, but I'll take the weekend, and I'll get back to you. Because, one, I definitely subscribed to the stereotype of big, bad, mean labels. I don't want to be a part of that fucking system. Like, I don't know. Also, corporate, political, like all the politics. Like, I just didn't know how any of that would play out for me and my personality. And then I did take the weekend to think about it. I talked to my now husband, who was just my boyfriend at the time, who was actually also, like, in real time, working out a publishing deal with BMG and a company called Still Working, Roy Orbison's company, which was insane because I would have had the opportunity to work with Hillary and Derek, who is also now a Grammy-nominated songwriter, and
Roy Orbison.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm like,
I don't want to pass over that.
I'm going to hang out with you for a weekend and just let this all rub off on me because clearly.
And I took the job. I thought to myself, okay, it was a 2-year contract. I can do anything for 2 years. It'll go by in a blink. And I'll go back to publishing after 2 years, and I'll be a better song plugger and a better publisher because I would have gained the knowledge of the label side. And that was a decade ago.
And here you are.
And here I am.
10 years you've been there.
10 years,
wow.
yeah. So Jim left in 2018, 2019. I don't know.
Something like that.
Maybe 2020. I don't know. I took over when Jim decided to leave. I took over the department and been running the department and signing artists ever since.
Incredible. So when you started, then 10 years ago, that would have been 2014?
Yeah, it was late 2013, actually. It was,
that you started at
September.
What was some of the most impactful, significant moments in your career from being a part of Sony?
Yeah. I mean, definitely it's really hard to like pinpoint one or even five because it's hard to say that any big moment for an artist isn't an impactful moment for an A&R person because like even the artists that are no longer at Sony that we don't work with anymore, they still had moments in their career that I was able to help see through or help, the process of creating a moment or getting a collaboration or whatever. And in that moment for those artists, they were really big. And so it's hard to say like there's one thing. The biggest, like the overarching impact though for me personally is being able to work with an artist from the jump, like when they just have a couple of songs out or when they don't have any songs out and there's they're creating something, they have a small rabid fan base but it's not explosive yet, and being able to watch that growth and watch that career build over time. And it's not just about the accolades and the award shows, it's really about like seeing an artist at Exit or the Basement East. Like the first live show, the first time I saw Luke Combs perform live in front of fans was at the Basement East.
Wow.
And now he's selling out stadiums.
Yeah, that's
it's
crazy.
Like, that is really, really wild to watch.
Yeah.
And with him, and you saw him there. Were you there, like, scoping him out?
So we had already signed him. We had just signed him. He had come into the office and performed a little bit, and we had already had some meetings, and we were, maybe the paperwork might not have been fully done, but, like, we had committed to each other at the time, and now it's like, you know, he's one of the biggest artists.
Yeah, it's
huge. Yeah.
The world, really. So
that is really neat to think about. Bringing, because Jason and I have worked so many times over the years with the artists that are in that pre-explosion phase of they're developing, they're getting a fan base going, you know, they've got some songs out there, they're working hard to either gain some kind of like management deal or a publishing deal or a record deal, one of the three, all of the three, and then see them kind of cross over, whatever. That is such a really neat opportunity to partner with and be a part of, to your point. So and I don't want to feed you words, but I know that there is a couple artists that you're sort of responsible for seeing that jump start happen. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I was a big part of the signing of Maren Morris, a big part of the signing of Old Dominion.
Yes.
A big part of the signing of Megan Maroney.
Wow.
But, you know, like how our team works. I have this philosophy of, like, I really don't like, I'm very, very competitive, like highly competitive, almost to a fault.
Nice.
But I don't like inter-competitiveness. Like, I don't want, like, I don't need
within
to
your
pit
team.
people against people with the team. So, like, how we approach signings, it's like one person comes in and says, I want to sign this artist. Like, one person comes in, I want to sign Graham Barham. Okay, let's all go after it together and let's all try and get this artist in the building. You know, it's that kind of thing. I don't want to kick each other's asses. I want to go kick the competitions.
Yeah.
You know?
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so it's hard. Like, I also don't, you know, I helped get those artists in the building and I helped sign them, but without their artistry and their work ethic and, you know, the timing, so much of what an artist, it is talent, obviously, and it is about the music and it is about how hard they'll work. But also in this business, my experience is that it's also about a little bit about luck. It's like the time. Is the timing of when you release that song going to be the moment that helps fans, you know, pay attention? Or like the song that you released last year that was a little edgier or a little too ahead of the curve. Didn't work then, but if you released it now, it would. It's like some of it you don't know.
You don't. I'm a big believer that everything in life is about the timing.
Yeah.
Right? And we just keep moving forward and step into our own space and time as it's supposed to be. And I think if we look back at almost anything in music history, the songs that we know were there for a specific time. And that's why we know them.
Yeah.
So there are so many great songs. There's so many great artists. There's so many great stories and tragic stories, all the things. It's like, and time is also the one thing we can't control or buy more of. Right. So as an artist, as an A&R, as coaches, anything, understanding the concept of time and all of it is really important, I think.
Yeah.
And just gives a kind of like something we can just take a breath of, not a breath, but just take a big exhale. Because like, we work hard, but we can't force this stuff.
Yeah,
and you really know that.
Yeah, you
from your
can't
world.
force it.
Because you have the budgets, you have the team, you have the connection, you have everything. Like if Shelby went to walk in today and I got this song, everything would say, this is going to be a number one because you're with Sony.
But maybe not.
But maybe not.
Because
there's that one thing.
Yep. And also, you know, a lot of it too is about the artist vision. Like I can't force an artist to be something that they're not, nor do I ever want to. So if an artist comes in and they say, I know who I am, I know what I want to say with this song or this album, I know what my messaging is, I know how I want to approach the fans, I know, you know, I have the idea of creatively what I want the artwork to be and the photos and all of that stuff, then I feel like, okay, we can really hone in. But when an artist comes in and they're like, I don't really know, and they kind of expect us as a team, not just A&R, but the whole label, to kind of form that, the problem is that in the beginning, it might work. But at some point along the course of that marketing plan or the release of that song or album, the artist will go, oh, now I kind of know what it is.
Absolutely.
And if it doesn't align, then it's really, really, really hard to come back from that. Plus, I don't want to confuse artists. I don't want to, they're human, you know? I don't want, like, they're not a product. It's such an interesting system and business because on the business side of things, like any other business, we are promoting and pushing and depending on a product to bring in revenue. It's just in this case, it's not a widget. It's not an iPhone. It's a person.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you have to take that into consideration and you have to be able to nuance that to make sure that you're not driving someone into a mental health spiral, which can happen because they also, because the product is their art, they're so vulnerable.
So vulnerable.
They're putting their music out there for the world to judge.
Yep.
I mean, you know, it's got to be incredibly taxing.
Actually, I love the angle that you're talking about this at, because we've talked about this even before on the podcast of how big labels in general are not really doing development anymore the way they used to many, many years ago. And sometimes you might be able to look at that as an outsider and be like, oh, they just don't want to spend their money on developing. But I love what your heart behind it is like, no, actually, we just really want you to figure out who you are yourself. It's not that we don't want to help you financially even. And I know that you guys put your money where your mouth is, and you are willing to invest in the things that those artists really need for development, like vocal coaching, for instance. But aside from that, it's more that it's about wanting somebody to really know who they are because you know that that's good for them.
Yeah.
And it's good for their brand. And that becomes mutually beneficial to the label, to the artists, right? And ultimately to the fans and the rest of the world. Yeah. When somebody is knowing who they really are and what they want and their vision for their product and their songs and their record, because that's authentic. That kind of vulnerability and investment in what they're doing is super, super authentic.
Yeah,
and
sure.
But I love that you can, you know, the audience can hear the big label side of that is not, I just don't want to put money into development anymore. It's no, we want you to figure out who you are. So we don't want to have to tell you because it may not work out really well for you or for us.
Yeah, and we do artist development. To your point, though, we don't do it like we used to. No label does. Because two reasons. One, an independent artist really can do it themselves. And if they hold out, they'll get a better deal. They'll get a better record deal. They'll get better terms. They'll get a better check. It's smart. It's a smart play for an independent artist to stay independent as long as they can. Sorry, Sony. But
for all those artists out there, take note of what she just said.
Yeah.
That's
it's true. From a
beneficial.
business side of things, like you have to, an artist needs to look at themselves as the CEO of their own business.
Yes.
What is
100%.
What is the best business decision? As the CEO of your own business, what's the best business decision?
Yeah.
When you're signing to a label, it's about getting the best terms. It just is. And so if they can hold out, you know, then that alone takes out some of the artist development.
Right.
Which goes back to time.
Yeah, time. Totally.
Right?
Time.
Don't rush the process just because you want the deal or the check.
Because it's easy to think that that's the
It
ticket
is.
to success. Like if a rival,
It
is getting the signing.
But you also have to think when you sign a record deal, the clock starts ticking. You're under a term. It's a contract. It will be scrutinized. We'll look at P&Ls, your profits and loss, how much money we've spent versus how much revenue you're bringing in. So it really is like staying independent to get the best deal. Also, so you can figure out your vision. You have more time to make mistakes, to jump into this sound or this production and go, oh, that's not really who I am. To try out this song and go, oh, that didn't really do as well as I wanted it to really dig into that.
Yeah.
And then on the other flip side of the artist development conversation, we do it very quietly so that we're not putting artists in the position that I just talked about. Like we'll sign artists and then kind of keep them in A&R and let them have some releases and let them really develop on their own without doing a big press release. Oh, Sony Music Nashville just signed this artist. Oh, so that when all the eyes are on them, there is, it's all kind of
put together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said so much there that
I know.
Sorry, we could go dive into that too.
Talk a lot.
No, that's good. It's so good because I think it's really insightful. And, kind of talking about artists often are just hungry for the deal and don't take into consideration. It's like I think maybe one thing I think I'd love for you to talk on more is the CEO of your business. And I've told people that, like, you're the boss of your brand. Like, you got to treat yourself as that. But a lot of artists don't have that bent in their frame, so to speak, because they think more creatively. They think more about the art and all of that, which is good.
I actually think it's less of that.
These days? Well, maybe the TikTok
I think that
era.
it's less of them thinking more about their art and more on the side of, like, they need validation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Which every human needs validation.
Yeah.
Like, we all do. It's just when...
I never do. Do I, Shelby?
Every day of his life. I'm kidding. Jason's very secure.
I think it's just when you are really at a place where you are pouring your heart out, whether it's over social media or through your music, you need people to say that it's okay or that they can relate. And so I think that sometimes artists will rely on that instead of being over here and going, like, okay, at the end of the day, like, if my manager leaves me and my booking agent leaves me and my record label drops me, what do I have?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to be good? Am I going to be, okay with the type of music that I've made and the type of person that I've become?
That's actually an incredibly valid point that I've never thought of myself. Like, what happens? What happens when this is gone?
Yeah.
How do I continue to live my dream and make my art?
Yeah.
And every artist should be able to answer that question.
Yeah. And it's something that I obviously don't take lightly. And it's something that I actually really think about, because here's how I think about it as it relates to myself. Like, if I got fired or quit this job, I could go find another comparable job. I could.
Right.
If an artist gets dropped, they might be flipping burgers.
Yeah.
Like, an artist was born for that. An artist was born to be an artist, to create. True. Like, so I'd be fine. Even if I, like, went into a different sector and I wasn't in music anymore, I still have a
pediatrician gig,
Yeah, like, I'd be fine. I mean, that I would not do. That's years of school. I didn't even graduate college. Like, let's be real.
Okay, Mom and Dad. She used to run a label. Just trust it.
No.
It's just a little jab. It'll be fine.
Definitely not. But, it's that thing of, like, okay, this is really what they were born to do.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, you want to just make sure that you're taking care of that.
Yeah. I hope that artists really listen to this deeply and honestly, because, you're also powerful. You're coming from you said this earlier, the big, bad, evil music.
Which we're not. That I no longer subscribe to that. I did 10 years ago, but I don't anymore.
Being on the on the other side of that, you're like, oh no, I really care about your success, because I know that if this doesn't work out, you could be flipping burgers.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important for an artist to take into consideration when they might be like, I don't know how I feel about a big label. Am I just going to be like somebody that gets put on a shelf or whatever? Like, well, it's probably not what you think. It's not being put on a shelf. It's being sent into A&R to help you continue to develop and be the artist that you're meant to be, so that you can be launched successfully because we care about you as a human being.
Yeah,
it's just like the Wizard on The Wizard of Oz.
Just like the Wizard.
You pull that curtain back and it's not as scary.
Yeah, it's not.
Not an evil person.
It's not.
Or a machine.
And the idea of an artist, like, it's hard. It's actually really hard to shelf an artist these days, because they have access to their fans, which is what we want.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, you think about social media has obviously tons of pros. It also has a lot of cons.
Right.
But an artist has at their fingertips the ability to reach the masses by like pressing one button in a way that they've never been able to before. They can gain fans in a different way. They can build fans in a different way.
Yeah.
And so like, we never ever want to shelf an artist. Like, I'd rather let an artist out of their record deal than hold them in something where we're saying, oh, we don't want to release music, because that does back to time. Like, they lose time.
Yeah.
You know, and what if that moment is supposed to be their moment and someone else is saying, no, you can't. I mean, that's also, music is subjective, right? Like, someone somewhere is going to love what they're doing. It's just, how do you reach that person?
Yes.
And it just might not be in the confines of the system that they're currently in, or they might need to be in a bigger system to reach that part. You know, it just really depends on who the artist is and what the art is and what they want to say.
And that's strategy. And I think that's like your whole job is strategy with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to see too, like over the past, let's say 10 years even, how we've seen artists like a Brandy Carlisle, who Shelby and I have loved for years and use her in coaching demonstrations and stuff. There's so many, especially in country, who have found their time in their 30s and 40s. Like, so they've allowed this art. One thing we talk about a lot in coaching is how it's not supposed to be instant. It's not supposed to be immature. There are places for that for sure. And there's anything can pop off. But the greatest art form on the planet Earth does need time to find its maturity and its greatness.
Yeah.
And you can't force that.
You can't force it. And then that's like going from just having a moment to having a career.
Yes. And I think social media has helped that a lot because, you know, back in the day, everything was so controlled by the label, every image, everything that came out. And now it's like, you know, here I am, you know, taking a poop on the pot. People do that. And it's like, why are you putting that on?
And it can go viral.
Why are you putting it on TikTok? I don't need to see this. But people, right? It does.
Yeah, it does.
It's crazy. No, it's where we are. But there's something cool about that too, because it is the most authentic thing that someone can do. And if if people like it, then that's your thing.
To each his own.
To each his own.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you feel like artists could strategically operate their independent art form, like pre-signing anything, more like a CEO of their own brand?
I mean, I think it's really about making sure that they're being authentic, like figuring out who they are and who they want to be as an artist and really staying true to that, no matter the cost.
Yeah.
Like no matter who they might upset, who they might piss off, who they might fall in love with, like whatever, it doesn't matter. Like just stay true to yourself, number one. And number two, it's like, I think that a big part of it is listening to all of the options that are presented and then being able to make those decisions for themselves, by themselves. You know, like consulting everyone, going, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Like, how is this going to impact me? How do you think it's going to impact me? What do you know that I don't know that can help me make an educated decision? Okay, now I have all the information. Now I'm going to take 24 hours. I'm going to go sit by myself. I'm going to sleep on it, and I'm going to come back to you with what I think is going to be best for my career. And that, I think, is part of the lesson as being an independent artist, but also a signed artist. Like across the board, they should say that. I mean, when we sign artists, we talk to them like it's a partnership because it really is.
Right.
Without them, we can't succeed. And to scale a career, if they want to really scale and be a massive artist, as of now, artists still need a major label.
Yeah.
You can't scale. You can be a really, really, really profitable mid-level artist. You can't become a ginormous artist without a major label. And so they need them. We need, they need us. We need them.
Right.
So it's really, truly a partnership in that regard.
Yeah. I find that, artists that I've worked with that haven't been signed to something, but maybe they've got management, maybe they're talking to like agencies, things like that, they end up sometimes then getting a little bit of the confusion factor of too many voices and they don't all agree. Even within a management team, you'll have, here's your like main management person, and then you've got these other people that are sort of like, I don't know, the assistant management positions, or if you will, and they disagree. And then I've worked with an artist who's kind of like, I don't know, this one says this and this one says this. I kind of feel like I like their thought on this, but it just gets confusing. And then, you rope in a producer because you're maybe talking about making a project, and that producer has a different opinion too. And then they'll ask me my opinion too, because I've maybe worked with them and I've seen the ins and outs and a lot of that vulnerability in their voice and in their music and in their heart, truly. So that's my opinion. And I'm like, man, okay, I'm not trying to add to the confusion here, but what I try to do is help them feel out what their internal knowing is. Like, okay, that's a good point that this person made. This is a good point that this person made. But to your point, like, go sit away, be quiet, pray, meditate, do the things that you need to do to tap into your internal knowing. And a lot of them don't know that yet, or have downplayed their own intuitive decision-making skills, of like, I don't know, freeze in the light of too many options and choices there. And that can be really challenging, I think, for artists to tap into because they're afraid of probably making the wrong decision.
Yeah, the wrong decision and upsetting people.
Right.
But another thing that I feel like artists need
losing
to
the
realize,
deal or something.
Yeah. They need to realize, though, that every single person that, like all the people you just mentioned, every single person on their team is there because of them. Like, without the artist, no one would exist.
No one has a job.
No one has a job.
Right.
No one has a job. And so it's like
crazy.
Without a songwriter, an artist will struggle. Without an artist, a manager, a booking agent, a publicist, a business manager, a record label, a whatever, like the whole, it's really interesting. They have more power than they realize to help control their own destiny.
Right.
And it does, that I'm not trying to take away from all of the people surrounding them, because we do our part. I'm one of those people, and I know how hard I work, and I know how hard the entire label system, the marketing team and the commercial partnerships team and the promotion team, like everybody works really hard for those artists. But if they go away, it doesn't matter,
No, and I think that's one of the reasons Shelby and I are so passionate about what we add to the industry, is because that artist being in charge of the entire machine, being that end product, really, if they're not mentally and emotionally and physically and vocally in check, the cart gets upended really
things
quickly.
Fall apart.
Things can really fall apart. And
like, it's important for, I think, I'm sure this part of your filter, right? That somebody that you're bringing in is, they look like a human being that has got it together. Like, they're not completely emotionally unstable and all of that kind of stuff, because that just is like a ticking time bomb.
They take care of themselves. They take care of their voice. Because, how many times have I've seen it, you've seen it, where, all of a sudden an artist was independent, doing 50 shows a year, gets put on first of 3 of a major tour.
Yep.
On top of a promotional tour, on top of, all of a sudden they're doing 200 shows a year, and they can't handle it.
Well,
cannot
even
handle
just, was it last week before, Chapel Roan had her breakdown on stage in North Carolina.
Oh, no.
Because all this immediate success, what seems immediate, and it did blow up for her.
Yeah, it did.
And she just didn't know how to handle it and just kind of broke down on stage.
So,
my
word.
Don't know what's happened post, but hopefully she's getting the care she needs. And we have artists like, I talk about Adele a lot in sessions, because she's someone who's let us see this whole process of her growth and how, she's had some vocal issues over time. And
she had surgery.
When she's had to cancel those tours, that's probably over 1,000 people whose income is affected. And you better believe that artist feels that impact in those moments. They may not think about it ahead of time.
No, they do,
But when it gets to that and you realize, like, wow, my tour manager can't
feed his family.
The lighting guy can't feed his family. Right? The stage crew, the whatever. And then on top of that, the fans that they also feel like they're letting down, which, you have to take care of yourself. So any artist that cancels a show because they need to rest needs to cancel that show. Cancel the show. For sure. But it definitely comes with its own, fallout. And that adds, I think, to the mental load that an artist carries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's something in our culture. Obviously, we could talk a whole nother segment on this. But you take the royal family down, the pressures that are put on people, politicians, pastors, artists, it is a big deal that they deal with daily, that it's really easy to not really ever consider that, because why would we? It's not our lives, our world. We just consume what's given to us. But it's a really, really big deal that you, in your position, have a lot of I don't want to use the word control, but you have a lot of, control is not the right word, but you have a lot of interaction.
No control.
You have no control over, but you have a lot of interaction with how, as a label, as an A&R team, as a group of people who help build out their system and network of other people to support, you can really be a part of that. And that's a cool aspect of your job that I've never thought about either.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a big responsibility though. We don't take any of that lightly. It's definitely, it goes back to like, this is all an artist was born to do. And so what can I do to help facilitate their career in the healthiest way so that they're not being put in a situation or a moment where someone can pick up their phone and cancel culture them in 5 seconds, which will completely break an artist down. But then the person that did it can go about their day and not think, because we can all hide behind our phones now with social media. So it's definitely interesting. It's changed so much since, I started. We were still like cutting CDs and people were buying music on iTunes, and now it's a completely different ballgame.
I think this is such an important conversation for artists to see, like, when you're just sitting back and nothing's necessarily happening in your career yet, but you keep seeing a new face show up in the spotlight and, this new artist just blew up or whatever. It can be kind of like not knowing all of what we're talking about, the time that it took, the development, the intentionality, and the burden that you obviously carry of all of these artists that are on your roster that you feel responsible to and measure, responsible for their health and success and their well-being. I mean, that's a lot for a human being to carry. And I know you're a mom. In fact, we didn't talk about this yet, but we know each other because we're moms, not because of music. Yeah. That is not how we connected at all, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not a part of that club.
Sorry, Jason. Our kids were in the same preschool class, not this past year, the year before. And I didn't, because your mom name is Taylor Sutherland.
Yes.
Because that's your married name. And your work name is Taylor Lindsey. And so I didn't know. I'm like, that's Lyle's mom. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you called me up one day because somebody told you, another mom at the school, was it Priscilla?
Yeah.
Told you at the school that I was a vocal coach. And you're like, I need a vocal coach for one of my artists at Sony. I was like, I'm listening. Yes, and I was like, also, wait, what? You do what for Sony? It's just funny that we met that way as moms first. But knowing that you're a parent was kind of my original point with that. You carry a lot as a mother, and for your children, for your spouse, and just the burden of your family. It comes with the territory. It's just how moms are wired, right?
That's true.
And so when you're already carrying that as a parent, and your kids are young too, 5, 6, how old is Lyle?
5.
She's 5.
And 2.
Those are exhausting years in parenthood,
You're telling me.
Oh my gosh, it really is. And then on top of that, the level of responsibility that you carry at your job, where because you're wired different and because you care deeply as a human, because you're a mom, because you're a good person, you love your family, it comes with the territory that you also love and care for the artists that are on your roster.
Yeah.
Like you probably lose sleep at night thinking about so-and-so down the roster of like that person. We really got to make sure, this is going on. It's just a lot to carry
it is.
in your soul. So one, I commend you and honor that in you as who you are. But also I think it's really important for people to know that. Like when you're sitting there waiting for your turn, your time to come up, I don't remember who it is that said this, but it's basically that idea of like success happens when preparation meets opportunity or something to that measure. And that's all about timing. the opportunity part comes, but the preparation part is so much of what you can control. And all of those types of things that you shared today are things that people need to be doing actively all the time so that when the moment happens, they are ready to go. And it becomes the successful story that they're hoping for, And like you were saying, stay independent as long as you can so that you can get the best terms. So like the harder you're working on your business, your craft, the better the deal is that's going to come your way at the right time.
Yeah.
You also mentioned authenticity at some point is like one of the best ways that somebody can be a CEO of themselves. And I mean, I think we almost need to change the name of the podcast at this point because that's come up every single episode.
Yeah. It really has.
It's not just a buzzword. It is, it's like, I can't drive it home enough.
Yeah. So much of that is just fans can tell if you're not being true to yourself,
Yeah. They can see right
they
through it.
They can see through it.
Right through it. For the artist out there, because I know you have a busy day ahead and we need to kind of start to wind this down. Do you have like not a magic potion, but do you have something like a mantra that you're like, if I was an artist today, this is the 1, 2, or 3 things that I would be doing, other than we've said authenticity and...
No. I do not.
Okay.
Because,
sorry, everybody.
Sorry.
That was a letdown.
The wizard has left the building.
The wizard. It's very wizardry, and we love it.
Because it's just so different for every artist. Yeah. So, like it just really comes back to like being authentic, like being who they are. I feel like the second you try and give someone advice about something they should do, like, take care of yourself, like all of that stuff. But it becomes a recipe, in my opinion, for what could be a disastrous career or situation.
I really love that because we live in a culture where there's so many people all day long. We open our phones and everyone's telling us the 3 or 4 or 5 steps of how to do this.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like
everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, even just last week, I bought a workout program for $60 online because I woke up one morning feeling a little bloated. And it was on my phone, and I never bought anything on there, and I fell for it. And then they just kept trying to sell me stuff. I'm like, now I'm offended. I was offended. It took over an hour for me to do this. I'm like, okay, I'm out. So I love what you said.
So you wasted $60.
I wasted $60 in an hour of time, and you just kind of made it. Yeah, no.
Sorry.
No, I love that. Well, because you do have to be getting on your way. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Really
appreciate it.
Great to have you here. I know you guys are going to love this podcast. Our next podcast is actually going to be how Shelby and Jason became Sony artists, and it's going to be great because we're getting ready to sign that record deal.
Yeah, come on.
Until next time, I'm Jason Catrone. Thank you for being with us today.
Welcome.
It was
I'm
really
Shelby
a
Rollins.
pleasure.
And this is Taylor Lindsey.
Yes, we'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Vocal Lab podcast. Ready to join the top ranks of the music industry? Don't forget to follow and subscribe for more first-class conversations that make the extraordinary your new ordinary. Until next time, keep striving for your top note.